Good afternoon. Today is Monday, and my name is Nayaswami Hriman, and I'm sitting here at the Camino Hermitage overlooking the Bay of Port Susan towards snowy mountains of the Cascades and beautiful Mount Baker. Today we continue with the Rubaiyat Stanza number 13, and we'll conclude with a guided meditation on the rose, the flower, the rose. First, I'm going to read to you the quatrain 13, and then we'll have Swami Kriyananda, we'll play a recording of him singing it. Okay, are you ready? Look to the rose that blows about us. Lo, laughing, she says, into the world I blow. At once the silken tassel of my purse tear, and its treasure on the garden throw.
Stanza 13. Look to the rose that blows about us. Lo, laughing, she says, into the world I blow. At once the silken tassel of my purse tear, and its treasure on the garden throw.
This is a curious one. I'm just going to read excerpts from Yogananda's paraphrase. Let the rose teach you. Mockingly, she says, I appear in the world. How mankind admires me, how it delights in my delicate fragrance. Such is the nature of all earthly pleasures, sweet-smelling, attractive, but how quickly they lose their bloom. Mere hours after they reach their peak, they pale and die. Earthly pleasures, like blossoms in a garden, mock those who depend on the morning's dewy promise, and look not ahead to evening's disappointment and remorse. So this particular quatrain is a very clear and obvious mocking of the passing, fleeting pleasures of this world, but it's not a cynical one. It simply is stepping back, and without necessarily having to go for decades in a single lifetime and to reap the rewards and worse from a lifetime of seeking things that don't last, the quatrain, Omar says to us, look now, step back from the garden of earthly delights. Look now at the rose, whose petals are so beautiful, whose fragrance is so lovely, and look how quickly the petals fall upon the ground and turn brown and are stepped upon. You know, I don't know a lot about roses, but I do enjoy the walking through these beautiful rose gardens, like up at up here in Canada. Suddenly my mind goes blank. I can feel the beautiful gardens up there. Anyway, they have different sections, and a whole section on roses, which if you go in July and August. But what I do know of roses is that some of them are so delicate that literally I have this one rose bush at the Ananda community in Linwood. It used to be behind what was our apartment for many years. And these beautiful flowers, but the petals were so weak that literally within hours, those petals would, at the slightest breeze, and they'd fall on the ground. Other roses, of course, will last a bit longer, are sturdier in their design. But Omar is asking us to, before we have acquired that wisdom, that knowledge, the hard way, to take a step back from, I've traveled a lot, and I think of all the wonderful meals I've enjoyed with friends all over the world, really, and the pleasures of, of a good meal, and I appreciate them all. But, in college I had this theory, I guess you call it a theory, anyway, that it didn't matter what I ate really, because by the time it all got to my stomach, not only was it all mushed together, but I could have just as well eaten rocks. Of course, that's an absurd theory, but anybody could tear that one apart. But the point is that, when it's done, you're done, and you move on. Now, a hedonist or one who just says, well, or a stoic even, might say, well, that's fine. That's just the way life is. Get over it, Why expect things to last? Well, it's a good question. Why not just eat, drink, and be merry, and don't worry about either the future, don't worry about the past, let it all go? Well, if it works, it works. But most people have an inborn, inbred, innate clinging. Now that clinging, you could say, is based on attachment, yes, and delusion, yes, but there is even something deeper to our clinging. Because reflective souls know that deep within us there is a yearning, not a clinging, a yearning for permanence. Yogananda surely was not the first to say this, but kind of a theme for his life, for his life's work, was taken from the teachings of the great teacher, the Adi, the first, Shankaracharya, back in about the 10th century or so AD in India, who gave this definition, if you will, this description of what God is. Satchidanandam. God is ever existing, meaning immortal. Ever conscious, meaning omniscient. Ever new joy, as Yogananda put it. He said, all men seek to avoid unhappiness, to avoid suffering, and to seek happiness. Those twin goals are deeply embedded in us. Even the survival instinct, which is commonly described as our root instinct, interesting root, when you think of the first chakra, those of us who are yogis, people could say, well, you're just attached to the body. Well, okay, definitely. But again, there's something deeper than just attachment to the body. There is a deeper soul knowing, which is why ideas about heaven and hell, ideas about an afterlife seem to persist. And it's not, the great ones tell us it's not because we're stupid. It's not because we want something we can't have. It's because it's the truth. The truth is we are immortal, we are omniscient, and we are ever joyful, but not to the extent identified with these bodies, to the extent identified with things that are always changing. Geologists, I'm looking out over at Mount Baker, geologists sort of have a smile that could possibly be a sneer, I don't know, but have a smile when they talk in these geological terms, millions of years, and the planet is 4-point-something billion years old, and the universe as we know it is 14.3 billion. They talk in these terms, the ice ages and stuff like that. But in a way, they're right, which is even these things like Mount Baker has only been there a few, million years or something. Whatever it is, it all changes. That's the point. And Omar is inviting us to step back and to reflect about, think of when you were a child, we practiced tantrum yoga. You watch a little kid, I'm a grandfather now, and although I don't get to see my grandkids right now with COVID, still, I get to relive and remember when I raised my kids, and I don't remember much about being a kid, but my mother would tell the story, to my embarrassment, at the worst possible moments at family gatherings, how it was that I was a child in a carriage, so what's that, 2 years old maybe, and walking around, and I saw a child go by with an ice cream cone. And I just screamed my head off, because I was smart enough to recognize an ice cream cone, dumb enough to want it for myself. And so, we practice tantrum yoga as children, so it's good to observe this. And then you see the older kids, and they can be pretty petty. And then there's the adolescents, and they just act out all this garbage, right? I used to say early on in my spiritual path that the reason I wanted to achieve enlightenment is I didn't want to have to come back and experience my teenage years. Well, I was only joking. My teenage years weren't that bad. But, the kind of hypersensitivity you have around being self-conscious, that is typical of one's teenage years, not knowing who you are. And so, being able to reflect about all the dramas we go through, and then they come and they go, and frankly, they never end. And like I say, a Stoic or even a hedonist might say, well, that's fine, let's just, But what I'm saying here is there is a part of us. Okay, it may not be 100%, because some people are pretty stupid, and let's face it, sorry. But I think for those of us who are a little calmer and a little more self-reflective, we do have a yearning for happiness, and not the kind that comes like the rose. We do have a yearning for continued existence, and to enjoy that continued existence rather than to merely suffer through it. It's odd that, when you have even like a car crash or something, or even in a lot of pain, there's a part of oneself, not everyone does this, okay, but there's a part of oneself, people like me and others, who think, wow, I'm going to have some great stories. It's a material universe. It's all about getting good material. Sorry about that. But what I'm saying is that even in the midst of pain, there is kind of I don't want to say a pleasure, but there is something there, So Omar, he's not being cynical. He's being reflective, and he's asking us to be more self-aware when we enjoy the small things of life, and to reflect that they are transitory. The deeper meaning, the deeper truth, is that which we enjoy, I don't know how graphic I want to be, but take some food dish that you really, really, like. It's one of your best things. Well, if that dish of food were, let's say, to be poisoned, or to cause food poisoning, and you were to get sick, as one does, you might not for a very long time ever want to eat that food again. It would be disgusting, okay? And I remember being in India with Padma, going over when Ananda first started the work there, and she and I came home after a long day, and we were hungry, and we asked it wasn't quite a hotel, it was like a pension, I don't know, it was a house, or I forget what they call it over there. And in Europe they call it a pension. And we asked the folks there if they had any leftovers from dinner, and they said, yeah, they did. They'd reheat something for us. It was sag paneer, the spinach curry. Well, we got sick, okay, and within hours. And Padma to this day won't eat sag paneer. The memory of that taste, again, I don't want to be too graphic here. But that's true of every pleasure. and I'm not going to name them all. Every pleasure can turn to disgust if you really are willing to put your mind to it. And there is no sensory pleasure that some percentage of the population finds painful or disgusting. And that's the deeper aspect of these kinds of things. And it's good to reflect about that, to be self-honest, and to remember. I used to tell the story in one of my classes I did for years. I would always use the example of ice cream. I'm getting kind of long, sorry. And in that ice cream, I'd say, what if you took your favorite ice cream, someone gave you 5 gallons, you started to eat it, and how long would it take before it got disgusting, before you couldn't even look at the stuff again? So that's what we're talking about. Okay, so I'm going to end with this chapter. Kriyananda gives a meditation. And so I'm going to read this, and if you want to sit up with me. Ready? Eyes closed, open your heart, calm but relaxed posture. Meditate as follows. You are not the rose which scatters petals afar on the summer wind. You are not the body which scatters energy abroad on winds of worldly desire. You are the subtle essence of reality, of all beauty and perfection. The essence that is you changes never. Withdraw the energy of your body into your own center in the spine. Relax. Release your mind from its ceaseless busyness. Relax. Cast unto the wind all desires and attachments of your heart. Relax. As you breathe naturally, feel your breath rising through the spine with every inhalation and then descending with every exhalation. Train yourself to become more conscious throughout the day of your own center in the spine. Signing off.